Our first reading, we saw the church continuing to grow and increase, but there's complaining. And the reason for this complaining between the Hellenists against the Jews is a very good reason, because the widows were being neglected in the daily distribution. And it's very beautiful, and I want to preface this homily because there's tension in the early church. There's been tension always in the church. There's tension in every parish and really every community. So this homily is in no way a passive-aggressive response to anything, because there's kind of different groups and people that I'm talking to that there might be, some things that we're working out, some complaints that have been brought forward. And this is, if anything, more a homily for myself, as much for myself as for anyone else. So please, if you and I are emailing back and forth or part of a group and, maybe there's some tension, this is not me responding passively, aggressively through that. It's just the reality that every community is going to have tension, is always going to have things that need to be continued to be worked out. It was only in the garden with Adam and Eve that we had that perfect harmony with God. And remembering that this is always about the mission of God. As disciples of Jesus, as chosen people, we should always live our lives remembering that it's not about my will, but about thy will, about bringing about the kingdom of God. And we had that perfect will, right? We have our own free will that God has given to us. And sometimes I tell people that, when loved ones have left the church or people are, making bad decisions, I just say, jokingly that free will just messes everything up, right? Gets us in all sorts of trouble. We have our own free will, our ability to choose and do what we want to do. It does. But it's also because of our free will that we can love and that we can receive love. So we do have free will, and it is beautiful. But we had that in the garden, that perfect harmony of our will with the will of God. But even then, in that perfect harmony, our first parents, Adam and Eve, turned away from that. They knew the will of God, but chose to follow their own will when it led them away from God, and that was bad. See, we're good when we seek our will to be in union with God's. We're bad when our will is not in line with His. Not necessarily always a sin. I mean, we kind of work in a veil. We're trying to understand God's will, and hopefully we want to pursue that, but we're going to make mistakes, myself included, obviously. But if we keep coming to those problems with the idea of not my will, but thy will be done, then it'll help us, right, to be much more efficient and finding out the will of God and being humble, right? So in any community whatsoever, whatever we have, there's going to be tension. There's going to be times where we, maybe complain. And in this case with the Acts of the Apostles, it was a good thing to complain about. These women were being neglected. It needed to be brought up. And so that's good. Then the community could come together and find a resolution to it. And what we see at the end of the story, the community continued to grow. So that's good. And there's lots of things that we can and probably have been complaining about maybe the response of the president and the task force, maybe the response of our governors, people going to the state capitals and protesting. Maybe we're complaining about, all sorts of things, maybe even within our own house, how our spouse has been behaving, or how our children have been behaving, how even the person on the road in front of me has been behaving. There's lots of things that we can complain about. But again, if we take a moment and recognize that sometimes our will can get us off track, that sometimes we can choose things just selfishly and not thinking about the will of God or what is the true good. And so, really, if we keep saying this phrase back to ourselves, not my will, but thy will be done. Because to be able to change things, to make things better in our community, right? The first place to begin is with ourselves. That I have to start with myself and saying, okay, I've made mistakes, I'm not perfect, and I want to seek the will of God. If each of us does that, that gets us in that place of humility to be able to move forward. And we think of Our Lady, and we celebrate this month. And, I'm wearing the vestments for Our Lady. On the back of this vestment is a beautiful little symbol of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And I'm going to be wearing this the whole month because it's the month of May, the month of Our Lady. And to imitate her, to see how she responds when the will of God is placed before her, she says with every reason to say no. I mean, the social scorn that it would be for her to become pregnant, even supernaturally, even in this beautiful way through the power of the Holy Spirit. The community is not going to take that well. This is a scary thing that's being asked of her, to be the mother of God. But in her response, fiat, yes, let it be done to me according to thy word. This is the perfect example for every disciple of Jesus Christ, and really for every person. Our Lady's yes is the perfect response of her will in union with God's. And she always, throughout her life, has been in perfect union with the will of God. And now in heaven, even more clearly, is in perfect union will with God. There is nothing that she desires or does that's out of line with the will of God. She's in perfect union with him. And this is what we long for as well. And this is what she desires for us. And what her role is to help us in this as our mother, right? Which, by the way, happy Mother's Day to everyone. I said it to the ladies here, but I just realized I didn't start my homily that way. So to all the moms, see, not perfect here. So happy Mother's Day. And to all of our moms, our grandmothers, great-grandmothers, all spiritual mothers, godmothers as well. May you be blessed, especially in imitating our Lady and just your nurturing and love and pouring yourself out. And I would expect that my mom is watching as well. So happy Mother's Day. Can't wait for you to get back home from Texas. So, but Our Lady, that's her role, is to nurture, to mother, and to love us as a community. But again, when we have conflict, and so I just want to say that I really am very happy and feel that our community is very blessed that we do have people who will bring up things, complaints and things that they see that may be wrong in the parish. That's fine. That's good, because I can't see it all. The staff can't see it all. So together, we'll keep working through it. But if we start, and this is the key that's important for myself and for each of us, is that we do start with that first seeking, is this the will of God? And I want to make this, bring this up, this complaint, in a way that's seeking the good of God. And this will help us. There's so many things that have been brought up since I've been here as pastor, and sometimes it's a struggle. You don't want to hear complaints, right? But I have very much enjoyed being a pastor, and this isn't any farewell. Like, I want to be here for a long time, but just to say that it's really been a unique experience as a pastor in that fatherhood, that spiritual fatherhood of receiving feedback from the parish and then discerning for God's will. And so please pray for me. And what we saw is that obviously the 12, the apostles, were kind of overwhelmed by the work that they had. And so they looked through their community and they saw, okay, let's pick out 7 good, reputable men who can help us with this work. And so the first, and the word that's used in here in the Greek is diakonos, which is where we get the word deacon, and it means servant. Now, if you saw this past week, I did an interview with one of our seminarians, Augustin Unwoha, and he's been assigned to us for the summer. He's going to be arriving, I think, in about a week or two. I think just a little over a week. And I'm very excited. Augustine was assigned to St. Vincent's for a few months before he started seminary. So he was there when I was. We lived in the rectory together, and he's a very good and happy man. And so I'm very excited to have him here for the summer, but also because on June 6th, actually at St. Vincent's, they're going to have the ordinations for deacons and priests. And Augustine is one who is in line right now to be ordained a deacon on June 6th. And so his purpose then, his responsibilities when he's here, especially as deacon, is one of service to the bishop and also to the priests. So mainly of helping me with serving at the altar. He'll be able to proclaim the gospel. He'll be able to preach, right? So some of you might be happy about that, to have a break from me, but he's a good, prayerful man, so I'm very excited to see and hear him preach. I've never heard him give any reflections or anything, so I'm going to be just as excited for you to hear his preaching. But to pray for these men. And what's beautiful about this of holy orders, of those who are called to be deacons, priests, bishops, it's always one of service. But the church teaches very clearly that no man has a right to this sacrament. No man can come forward and say, I must be ordained. It's actually the church, as we saw here, who chooses and puts the men forward. And there's the question that's so beautiful during the ordination, where the bishop asks, do you know them to be worthy? And the response is, after inquiry with the people of God and with his formators, we can attest to the fact that he is worthy. That's a very powerful moment for the man before he comes and lays face down and then has hands laid on his head by the bishop in that ordination. In the ordination of being set aside for special use. So to pray for them. It was really kind of moving. I realized, actually, I was ordained a deacon over almost 6 years ago. I think I was ordained on May 27th. Nope, May 24th, 2014. And one of the things that you receive as a deacon is a book of the Gospels, right? So there's a visible sign of what you're supposed to be doing as a deacon, which is receiving the Gospels and proclaiming those Gospels, right? And the reason why I'm so clear on the date is because this book literally is the one that I received as a deacon. The Gospels that we had when I first arrived here, where the binding was kind of falling apart, and so we needed a quick replacement. And I thought, well, what better gospel than the one that was given to me? It doesn't need to be collecting dust on the shelf. And so this was a very special day, and just the opportunity to come and serve. And so I look forward to seeing how in the midst of this pandemic, the best that we can, of welcoming Augustine. This assignment will be the first time that he is, as an ordained man, serving the flock, of serving the people of God. And so this is really a special time in his life and will endear him to us in a very special way. The same as every man's first assignment, and really everyone after that. But so be please praying for him. There was an interview that I posted on our YouTube channel with Augustine, so you can get to know him a little bit, and throughout the summer we'll continue to get to know them. But again, every man has to have that question, and every woman discerning consecrated life. Again, it's not my will, but thy will, God's will, be done. And so we need your prayers. You see, in the gospel, even the apostles have some difficulty trying to understand, right? There's Peter who has just said, Lord, I'm willing to die for you. And Jesus points out, you're going to deny me 3 times before the cock crows. And so their hearts are troubled. And Jesus says, don't let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith also in me. And that's what's going to help us to continue to grow as a community in discipleship and in love of God, is having faith in him. And so with everything,
Lift up your hearts to the Lord. Praise God's precious mercy. Sing out your joy to the Lord, whose love is enduring.
and thank you for joining us for this live stream of the Mass. We ask that you would please like this video and subscribe to the channel to be able to stay in contact with future posts as well. We live stream the Mass daily, Monday through Saturday at 8 a.m., every Sunday at 9 a.m., and we have Eucharistic Adoration every Wednesday at 8 p.m. To get some more information and stay connected within the parish, if you just look in the description of this video, I have some links to our website, sacredheart-warsaw.org and sacredheart-warsaw.org. But you can also text app, APP, to 88202. Begin to text the word app, APP, to 88202. That'll help you to download the MyParish app, which gives you access to our parish bulletin, to the Mass readings, and to a lot of other great resources to help you in your prayer during this time of the pandemic. So we thank you again for joining us, and we hope that you have a good rest of the day. God bless.